My name is John Klein. I'm Vice President of Client Support here at FMS. And as I mentioned a minute or so ago, this is I think the 14th year, Eric, or coming up will be the 14th year that FMS and NGA have have produced the annual financial survey. This year, 2017, we started doing the quarterly updates, and it's a modest update. It'll have sales and margin results through Q2 that we gather throughout the year. So not a fully blown survey release, but some mid-year information. We do this quarterly. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the agenda will obviously it's an FMS production. We'll talk a bit about FMS. We'll give a quick economic review of the quarter to put some substance around the results that you'll actually see at the end. So, FMS employs a number of strategies to provide service to the independent supermarket group. Today's obviously falls into the supermarket benchmarking segments. We have a place on our portal that we call on our website that we call FMS University. A number of the benchmarking efforts goes into that section of our website. It's our mission has always been to help retailers succeed. So this is part of providing the information that you need to run your business. We have a number of offices around the country. Our newest one is in Toronto. And we service close to 4,000 individual stores throughout the country. Today we're talking about the benchmarking part of what we do to provide services to our clients and frankly to the industry. As I mentioned earlier, it's the 14th year coming in. We're our third year doing a Canadian survey as well. So if there's any Canadians on the call today, welcome. As I said earlier, this year we started tracking quarterly results of the survey. One of the complaints we've gotten about the survey itself is that it's released too late after the year to always be meaningful. So we're trying to provide more timely updates relative to that. So the first thing we always do when we talk about survey results is we give a quick reminder of the political and the economic backdrop that occurred during that quarter. So interest rates, are slowly rising after many months of essentially near zero Fed funds from the government. We are seeing those inch up. The Fed is trying hard to balance their fear of inflation versus sluggish GDP. And, so it's after many years of completely being flat, they're now inching up rates, and we can see that in the prime rate at 4.25 as it currently sets. I keep hitting the button backwards. I apologize for that. I'll use my clicker going forward. As you can see, we went through 19 straight months of deflation at one point. That was historic, starting in 15. Never has happened before. And many of those months, every subcategory of grocery and food at home had deflation. We finally kicked that trend in April, just barely. I think the good thing is we're starting to see a trending upward or lessening of the deflation rates. But if you were to look at year over 2 years ago, I'm not sure what that acronym would be. Sales, it's a tough comparison, but we finally are starting to see a bit of inflation in certain sectors, at least more so than we have in the past. But we did break the 19-month run of deflation. Unemployment remains low. This past quarter, we've averaged producing 100. Our economy has averaged producing 193,000 jobs per month. The unemployment rate has dropped to 4.3, which is the lowest since the early 2000s. Really, since the recession, job gains have been consistent across most sectors of job categories. I think the one takeaway when I look at labor statistics that is striking to me is we're still down in total participation, which is a number of employees or people who are typically in the workforce. The rate of participation versus those not participating is still pretty high. I think that's, as we talk about here in this slide, a lot of that is due to the fact that a lot of baby boomers took early retirement because their jobs were eliminated, and many of those have not gone back into the workforce. And I think that's one of the reasons we see such a price-conscious consumer today is we still have a fair amount of underemployed and folks who are just permanently out of the job market based on their particular circumstances. So let's talk about the industry performance a bit. These are same-store sales. This is from the Pulse. As I do in each of these presentations, I always talk about plug the Pulse. That is, if you go to FMSSolutions.com, you can find a place to sign up for the Pulse. There's no catches, no strings. You simply each week get a report of that week versus the same week prior year of sales and customer counts, and it's a very, very robust sampling size. So it does have statistical validity to it. Some weeks it gets a little bit off if you've got differences between holiday weeks year over year, but it's a really good barometer of what's going on. As you can see from this slide, in 2015 we were 1.28 down, 162 and 16. Q1 this year was abysmal. There were some weather issues for that. We are now trending in Q2 about where we were year to date, 16. So not a lot of gains there. Certainly, deflation has an impact on that, but I think the bigger impact on that at this point in time is just the absolute onslaught of competition and competition's reaction to the new competition in Lidl and Amazon. I did tour some of the Lidl stores, and those pictures are also, I think, Eric, available on our website. We took some photos. We did tour some Lidl stores earlier this year in the Carolinas, and nice stores as far as that goes. But what impressed me, or what made an impression upon me, were the reaction by Walmart and Aldi, et cetera, because we purposely chose markets that Lidl picked that had those kind of competitors in it, and their reaction to those markets, to those Lidl markets entering the competition was incredible. Some of the pricing they had, so clearly a tough competitive market. So getting into what we have to talk about today, some of the sales distributions and margins. You can see the margins on the right. If it's in red, that is a negative comp to the 2016 margins, which are year to date. You can see that sales distributions and margins are, the distributions are about what they always are, but margins in grocery, dairy, frozen, and meat are down. The others are up. Overall, we have a comparison compared to last year. We're down about 60 basis points. So it continues to be a struggle in terms of sales being flat to negative, slightly negative, and softening margins. I do think that we are seeing some uptick in margin in Q2 versus Q1, but it's modest, certainly to say the least. I think we're starting to see sales improve just a hair, but again, it is absolutely slow improvement. So if you have any questions regarding the numbers in this update, please you can email me at johnc@fmssolutions.com. There are a number of ways to get a hold of us about that. So the other thing that we take a look at is net profits before taxes. You can see that it has not been a stellar 2014 forward for our industry. The 0.91 and 0.98 in 14 and 16 respectively, 115 in Q1 of this year, and then 1.04 in Q2. I think part of the downtrend in Q1 is many of our customers do tend to recognize year-end rebates and vendor monies in Q4 as opposed to Q1 just because of timing. So I suspect that is what's driving the delta between Q1 and Q2, given the other numbers that we looked at. But again, we're seeing, if you took out the 144 and 15 and just looked at 14, 16, and 17, they're all within just a few basis points of 1%. So still a struggle. Labor and benefits, you can see the green is labor, the orange is benefits. Continues to run, the 15 to 14% range across the board. Not much change in Q1 versus Q2. Slightly much better than 2016. So which is a good sign. And I will say in the industry, that is what we are seeing now is much more focus. I have many calls from retailers, and there's certainly a focus right now on budgeting and on expense containment. A lot of consolidation in the industry. I think folks are realizing that it is almost impossible right now to raise top line, and it's very difficult to raise margins other than through shrink control and other things but through pricing changes, pricing increases is almost impossible. So we're seeing more and more people focus on below the line in order to retain net profit. So as I mentioned earlier, John C, Jonc at fmssolutions.com. Or 877-435-9400. Extension 1414.